All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our broadcast today. I'm part of the product marketing team here at mParticle, and today we'll be talking about how you can construct a high quality customer data pipeline, which is always on, continuous, and doesn't require a lot of help because you have oversight available from the infrastructure that's piping a lot of that event data from your data sources down to different downstream systems. So let's go and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And get going. All right. So if you think about the cost of bad data, this study by HBR was really telling. It speaks to that it costs 10 times as much to complete a unit of work when the data is flawed in any way as it does when it is perfect. If you think about it, in many ways, a lot of times when we're constructing any kind of work that's associated with data, when the data is bad, you have to go into a triage or troubleshooting process, looking at all the different avenues of the data sources, where the data ended up being, doing a cleanup job, matching and merging, all sorts of different types of data. And it costs in both manly hours and also in terms of the time of opportunity cost that would be spent otherwise on more high quality things that you could be doing, such as building new features, especially when it comes to engineering. So with that kind of opportunity cost that's there from suffering from bad data, you still see teams continue to suffer from data quality issues. Some of these issues, specifically to customer data pipelines, are to the tune of that maybe a mistaken event was coded in because it was misspelt, or the requirements were misunderstood by the developers, and the process of catching them was further down the few months than when actually the app was launched. It could be botched customer experiences. So when you have bad data that's going into your mix panel or your another kind of email personalization tool or SMS messaging, having bad data and building those audiences for paid ads, they all have downstream systems where the ROI from the type of personalizations that you're trying to do and having the CDP help you with, they start to get impacted. Inability to fix data in flight. Many times, these are pipes that are not flexible. You can't really go in and be able to replay the data or fix it in flight so that you can literally put a stop or a pause to bad data going and populating your downstream systems. And then all of this, if left undone for a really long time, which is you don't do anything about it, and don't have a proactive effort to really mitigate these issues, then it comes down to poor decision making, which can lead to very serious consequences because you'll be building decisions on data that is just not as valuable as it is in its bad form. So what teams need, in our opinion, is a customer data quality solution that is always on, has continuous checks for accuracy and consistency of data, and proactively prevents bad data from getting into core systems. mParticle ensures that teams have that real-time access to high-quality data when it comes to customer data, because in turn, that is what's going to help you to improve customer experiences and accelerate growth. How do we do it? mParticle is a foundational customer data infrastructure platform that holistically addresses customer data challenges. So you can bring in data from all sorts of different sources where your customer is engaging with your particular company or your app or your brand. You can protect data quality as it flows through the platform in dynamic ways. So you actually have the ability to fix issues in flight, have the ability to see violations that are happening, which were against unplanned events and attributes. You can ensure data governance because you have control over how this data is going to flow to downstream systems, granular control by filters, and then things like data subject requests and CCPA and GDPR compliance. And then connecting data anywhere with our hundreds of integrations that are available. There's literally no tool that you can't connect this customer data to, so that you have clean data flowing to those downstream systems that you really care about and are the tools of your trade for your marketing team, your product management team, or your developers to essentially build up that growth stack, which is going to in turn help you develop better customer experiences and achieve growth. So in summary, mParticle helps teams, which is product managers, growth marketers, and developers, with three core challenges with their customer data. First, connectivity. So we break down data silos. We have intelligent orchestration, so you can build these customer data pipelines programmatically or to the UI with a few clicks. And we are agnostic to any kind of locked-in, best of particular tools. You basically have a choice from best of breed tools for data warehouses to email messaging to advertising, whatnot. We continuously have integrations built by ourselves and through our partners as well, through a framework that we offer them to build integrations to us. We have invested considerably in making sure that this is not a platform that just shoves data from point A to point B. You have a lot of control as a product manager, as a marketer in the UI to make sure that your data has the quality checks in place, but also developers at compile time, so that when they are developing and constructing their events and attributes against mParticle, they get real-time feedback. And then governance, obviously, to improve transparency and making sure that you're complying with user preferences and privacy. So what we're going to talk about today is kind of an overview of a subset of tools that kind of provide an always-on self-service tooling for maintaining high-quality data in everywhere that you source your data from mParticle to any downstream system. So the first set of suite of tools is Data Master. Data Master provides a way for teams to organize, manage, and validate customer data before it reaches downstream systems. It has four main feature sets: catalog, which is a data dictionary; plans, which provide a way to make enforcement of agreed upon attributes and event names to be enforced; block data is a new feature we introduced a few weeks ago, which provides an ability to fix issues in flight and also be able to replay them. And then live stream is a real-time view of how data is coming in and going out of the platform. Then we have a set of developer tools for engineers to manage data quality across the customer data pipeline. We have SmartType, which is an open source product to help you with creating data models and being able to leverage those data models across multi-platforms, or iOS, Android, and web, making sure that you have consistency of how you're capturing events and attributes from all those apps in a common data format. Data Planning API, which helps you communicate with that data plans programmatically, so you're able to do all sorts of CRUD operations on the plans. A CLI to manage a lot of these things to a command line interface, and then linting to get real-time feedback in your IDE so that you are coding as a developer against the plan that has been set forth by the team. And ID Sync is an automated identity matching and resolution, which happens as these events come in and they have identity included in them, how the matches happen, how a profile is created, how the identity hierarchy is built in within the platform to be able to give you that perfect single customer view. That is the golden record that you're going to use to build audiences, to send that data to downstream systems, to really help understand a more contextual understanding of your customers and be able to leverage that to create better experiences. What we're going to talk about today are the items in green through a demo and show you the different capabilities in the platform and how they actually help you to manage the quality of your customer data. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so to do the demo today, I'm going to walk you guys through a demo app, which is called AHA Shop. The story of AHA Shop is that this is a site this is about to launch. This AHA Shop is a e-commerce website for clothing, which has a bunch of different clothing for men, women, and a bunch of different accessories. As a growth marketer, what I'll care about from AHA Shop website is to understand how are people utilizing the website, what journeys they're taking, what are they putting in their checkout, what happens when they move from the checkout to proceed to a payment, and once they make a payment, what items have they actually bought, so you can continue to map out their LTV. Um, as a product manager, obviously, you could be introducing new features like search to be able to leverage that what kind of search analytics that you can get, or feature flags that you may want to introduce for certain users to test certain capabilities. So you're interested in data that could help you make those decisions. And then obviously, as a developer, you want to take those requirements and actually build those actual experiences in the web app. So let's go ahead and go and understand how this process would eventually go from 0 down to a full-blown website that has a CDP connected to it. So like any project, the first place that most of these teams are going to start with a product manager and a marketer is around constructing a data plan. So you have your site mocked up, you have your pages, in ready to test, and now you're looking at that. Okay, what are the real things that when it comes to data points that I really care about, that I want to capture from this web app? Well, on the user attributes tracking, you could be looking at things like when they log in and fill out a form to sign up, what their age, country, first name, last name, all the usual stuff to identify them, identifiers like email, right? And you may also want to have a customer ID associated with them, which we'll talk about in a second. Next up, you also may want to be able to, and let me look at event tracking. Event tracking is where you would want to understand what are the individual events that I really care about as a marketer. So pages viewed, search, add to cart, add to wish list, purchase, remove from cart. So these are all the things that trigger different experiences, and you want to understand individual attributes of items within those events to really map out a customer journey and be able to better tailor them with downstream experiences where if they're holding stuff in their cart, you may want to trigger a campaign to give them a coupon to come back and actually go through with the checkout, or looking at their previous buying behavior because you have that golden record in the profile to be able to see what are the habits and behavior analytics around a particular user and be able to build campaigns around that. And then obviously you have your identity strategy, which is that, hey, you may want to assign a customer ID when somebody logs in, which is unique to your AHA shop company. You may have other forms of IDs that you may want to collect, email, and obviously if they're coming from a mobile platform, then the usual identifiers from those devices as well. So when this plan is constructed, more often than not, this is now handed over to the developer to be able to then take this information and start planning out and coding it within the app to be able to capture that. But one step that always kind of throws teams off is that this is a Google Sheet. It's a static data plan. What if somebody wants to come and make an update? Well, would it be a Jira ticket down to a developer, or could it be a little bit more dynamic so that you have a way to communicate to the developer that changes have happened, but also it's a living, breathing plan on top of your data pipeline so that you can continuously monitor that what are different kind of changes happening and version control it. And on top of that, if there are issues where somebody made a mistake on the development side, or you want to introduce a new change, you're able to react to it in a very, very quick way, reducing the troubleshooting and triaging time for you. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take that Google Sheet plan and bring it into mParticle. This is mParticle's UI under Data Master in Plans, and create a new plan, which takes that information in that sheet and goes over and brings all those data points into the platform. So let's go ahead and click on Create Plan. We're going to call this my October plan. Click on Create. In this case, I want to pick a JSON file. We provide our customers a way to convert that Google Sheet into a JSON file, something we're going to introduce in the UI in the future as well. But for now, I'm going to take that plan, which was converted over, and it shows me that it has 12 new data points, and go ahead and click on Import. And now this data plan is going to be created as a plan, a dynamic plan, which I can overlay on top of my customer data pipelines within mParticle. All right, so while my thing here still processes my plan, let's go ahead and take a look at what other sorts of information that you want to give back to the users, so especially the developer, when they can take this plan and start to engage with it in a more programmatical way. So once the plan is here, which will show up in a second, hopefully, you want to obviously give the developer a plan ID, which we'll talk about in a second. And then you also would want to give them an input to that this is a web app, so you want to create the API key and a secret to give them that information so that they can actually throw in the mParticle tracker into each of the web pages and start tracking those events against this particular plan. So let's go back. Hopefully my plan has updated. If not, this is a developer environment. Demo gods are sometimes not favorable, but we'll give it a second here. But in the meantime, what I can do is go in and actually show you a helper utility called mParticle CLI to actually see that once that plan is in place, how you can pull it out programmatically. So let's go ahead and pull the MP help. So the MP help is going to provide you certain capabilities. So you can obviously do things like autocomplete, help, and then it also has planning, which is an interface with our data planning API to go ahead and pull all the information that you need around a particular plan. So what I'm going to do here is pull down another plan that I have and basically see what that plan was created in the UI. And it's going to give me back a JSON, which I'm going to obviously pipe it into a particular file on my local machine. But it gives you all the different identifiers that you see in the UI down to, in a programmatical way, in a JSON schema in your particular local machine. And you can download it and put it against your IDE. All right, so now we have the plan. We have the API key. Let's go and dig into the code. All right, so this is my index.html. That's the homepage for that particular AHA shop website. What we're going to do here is throw in an mParticle tracker. mParticle tracker is a really easy, small snippet of code that you can put in on every page. And it's going to initialize the mParticle web SDK and start capturing some initial events automatically and other events that may be coming in to be able to leverage that customer data pipeline. Obviously, the unique key that you need is also enforced there, so it can actually talk to that particular web input that I showed you in the UI. So the other key thing that you want to do here is that because you now have a plan that's available, you want to enter that which particular plan you want these events to be captured against. Now, these events could look like something like this, where you could be piping in user identifiers that you read through when somebody puts in the login information. You could be setting in particular user attributes, and you could also be logging in custom events, which come in different shape and form that you can look it up in our documentation to be able to leverage those events and send them into the web input that we have created on the site. So let's go ahead and go to my web app. I'm going to reload it here, so to start generating some events. And I'm going to follow through a couple of workflows to see, okay, what's in my cart? Looks like there are a couple of items in my cart. They obviously have associated dollar values, a total. I want to go ahead and then proceed to checkout. And in the checkout is asking me for a particular set of information. So let's go ahead and fill that in, so that I actually have real-time data that I can see how it came through in my event. Let's try that. Okay, and I'm going to place an order. And yep, my checkout's gone, and those particular items have been purchased. So now let's go and look back into the UI and see how these events are coming in. All right, so I have a bunch of events that are coming in as part of the workflows that I did on my app. So let's go through them here one by one to see kind of what's happening. So first, obviously the application started. which essentially is when the SDK was initialized. When I went through the checkout, is essentially going in and checkout page. It's itemizing those individual items and the amount that I have as user attributes. When I made a purchase, it's showing that the status was complete. And it's also tracking a bunch of other user attributes that I piped in the form to be able to construct them in the user profile. Now, one thing that you notice is that there's a little checkbox that's green that's next to these events. What this telling you is that all these events are actually conforming with my plan, AHA Shop plan. So we'll go there in a second. Hopefully that's loaded up to see what these events are. But any event that is not in my plan ID, which we'll see in a second, is going to show up as an unplanned event and starts to give you some statistics around that. So let's go back to our plans. And if it hopefully loads here, kind of ironic. But let's give this a little bit of a second to see how this is going to work out. Let me try something to sign out and come back in. Okay. All right, well, doesn't look like it's happening today. So let's go back and see maybe another workspace that might show me these plans in a better way. If not, then we'll kind of go through this in a separate session, or I can go ahead and pull it through programmatically to show you some of these things that way. But let's give it a second here to see if this works out. All right. Okay, well, that may not be coming up. Let's try pulling my particular user profile. Okay, so as I was sending in all those events, the profile that I was sending against was kind of building those capabilities around that. So there's an mParticle ID that's assigned to a particular user that's unique to mParticle. So every user gets that. The customer ID is something that you can set as part of your app, AHA Shop application. And then it tracks all the different devices that this particular user used, and it starts to capture the data quality user attributes. And the data quality demo right here is associated with the workspace that this particular information, this data pipe is being constructed with. So as you can see, a lot of those information that I put in the form, it has now been captured here. And a lot of those events that are coming in are essentially the building blocks for all this information that's being piped here. So if I go back to my live stream, we can essentially start to see what sorts of events are coming in, what sorts of events are not going to be available. But let's try sending an event that actually does not conform to a particular site. So as an example, what we're going to do here is go back to our web app and use a product manager, come up with a new requirement where you want to track that when somebody puts in a particular search keyword, then you want to know what is that product details that particular user actually saw. So you can kind of build a user journey and start to map out some preferences for that user to basically target them with better experiences or coupons or other kind of promotions in an email or an SMS campaign. So what you care about from here is that what are the items that they looked at individually, what was the SKU number, the category, and the tags. And what you'll do here is to go back into the plan, and you'll start to essentially add that new attribute into that plan. Well, let's for the sake of this demo, assume that that plan has been added. So what you did is, once you did that, you basically told the developer that, hey, I added something called products viewed. And the developer went in and fat fingered, and now you have product viewed. Well, guess what? The developer is not available to fix that change in the app. And you are piping that data over to Amplitude, where you want to grab that data and start to really understand some of the user journey and other behaviors that you care about to run a campaign around the Thanksgiving holiday. Well, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Well, one, you can let these events go through. You can go to Amplitude downstream system or somewhere else and make sure you fix that event name there, which could be multiple applications. But since you chose to go with products viewed, there's another alternative, which is something called block. What block data does is that it gives you the ability to take unplanned events and send them into a quarantine output, where you can kind of go there and actually review them and then play them back. Let's try plans one more time to see if it loads. If it doesn't, then we'll skip that part and go back and see how we can fix that. Well, what happens is in a block, and in terms of the capabilities, is that essentially when every single event that's coming into mParticle is going through a workflow of rules engine and then plan validation, which I showed you, which is happening, and then it makes it into a profile and down to outbound integrations for piping down events. What block does is give you the ability to set up a block for unplanned events, unplanned user attributes, event attributes, and identities. And you can also set up a quarantine connection, which is right here, to an S3 bucket or a webhook, and be able to pipe that data out there to be fixed or replayed. In a workflow, what that is that block sits between the plan validation and rules engine. As soon as the events come in, right at the edge, it would check the plan, verify whether this particular item was planned or unplanned. It was planned, it would go through to the plan validation and be sent out. If it's not, it's marked as an unplanned event and sent into a quarantine bucket. And from there, you can do anything you want to replay that. Now, that quarantine bucket, what I've done is set up a webhook to a request catcher. And essentially over there, this is an event from earlier today, since my block is not working right now. But this particular event essentially is something you can copy out. And what it looks like is something like this. So this is our schema for what an event looks like. And you can start to see that this particular event, in this case, was event name product viewed. And this needs to be products viewed. What you also notice is that there are things like event ID, and you can, if you scroll down, you can start to see individual blocked, what was actually blocked. What was an identity, ID, a particular event, an attribute. In my case, I only blocked this event since it was an unplanned event, so it gives me the event ID. Well, what can you do with this, right? So you can take this event, and we provide our customers with a backfill script, which is available in Node and Python. But what I'm going to do, just to kind of, for simplicity's sake, just use Postman and essentially bring that event into and use our events API. So that event, essentially, again, you construct the same thing, something like where you could say, I wanted to do against this particular plan. Let's keep that with a shop plan. And then I fix the event to now say products viewed, and I'm going to go ahead and send. And what's this going to do is that when this event now makes it back into the platform, it's going to take that event and replay it using the exact same time when the original plan event came in, and send it down to all the downstream systems like it always was supposed to go down. Now, we hold events for a significantly longer time, which is in months, or based on your contractual plan could be years. But we recommend that you do this replay in close proximity, or within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or depending on how your downstream system really wants to consume these events. Some of these events may not be as valuable 2 weeks from now because that downstream system may not have the retention period to allow that, because the date stamp is still going to be the original event date. So now let's go back and take a look into our live stream to see if this particular event came in. Oh yeah, it did. And if you notice, the date stamp is from 1:38:50 in the morning today. So it actually does go back and replay that event from the original time. This is a pretty powerful feature that we have found a lot of our customers started to utilize, where essentially they have now control over blocking unplanned data, being able to leverage the plan in a way that's more dynamic, and then be able to fix that data if needed, if they don't have a particular developer handy. So this could be a simple issue like products viewed, which was misspelled to be product viewed. It could be an identity where this was fat fingered to something different. It could be a new item category altogether. Like you could define a schema for a particular event to say, I want this event only to have these 4 attributes and no more. You could also have validation in the form of regex in the plan to say that these particular attributes in this particular event, I only want it to consume number, email, or a particular regex format if you have something proprietary. And that gives you a lot of flexibility in making sure that the right data is always in place within your customer data pipeline to be able to leverage all the downstream systems that would consume that data, because this becomes your single source of truth for that first party data that's available to you. Well, there you go. Finally, right at the end of the demo, my plan did show up. So let's go and take a look at the AHA shop plan. And I'm just going to walk you through a few things here to kind of cover in a feedback loop as to what we covered originally in a lot more of my talking points. So all these different data points that you see, they are in the form of events, user attributes, and identities, which is your identity strategy. When you have an event, you can go ahead and create a particular event at any time. And as soon as you save it, it would start to be enforced exactly at the right time. So you can pick a custom event. We give you all sorts of different categories. If you're unsure, you could play other or unknown. You could also have commerce events, which are particular events using our commerce event API to be able to leverage that. And then once you have an event, let's say navigation, you can do a test event. You can add an attribute to it. In my case, I want to say, hey, I want a custom attribute, and I want this attribute to be an array, so a developer can code in, particular additional attributes. Or you could do something that is kind of like event ID. You can give it a number, and you can start to set some validations around that too, min and max. You could pick up something that's more of a string and start to give other validation that's available there, or set up a custom regex as well to be able to leverage that. But once you put in a plan, save it, it takes into effect right away. What you can also see is a set of reporting around this plan to be able to see how this plan has fared over time. So my plan has received altogether 945 data points. Out of them, altogether, I've had 38% violations. 62% of them were the ones that were valid. And you can scroll down and now see the individual data points as well in a more summary way. So you can actually go in and see like, oh, aha, product viewed. Well, glad to know that it only came in once because I only had to fix it one time. But if the same event was now brought in hundreds of times, we give you that ability for playing back all those 100 events after fixing it, so you can not lose that data. And then blocked was a feature that I spoke about. That in this particular case, I had 76 instances of blocked user attributes and events. In this case, I basically had a way to connect this quarantine that I set up with a webhook. So what I can do is, if I go into the connections, I can see that I have set up a webhook that goes into my particular request catcher. and actually leverages all of those information that I can pick out those events right from there. It can also be able to filter down the data from particular reporting standpoint, like how far you want to go back to actually see. In my case, it's already showing a couple of days, but I could increase that to be able to leverage that. And then you can also have this blocking maintained version by version, right? So you can actually see different version of your plan. Like if you go back and if I add a new data point, I can actually choose to make it a new version. So you actually have like a hierarchy of things that you see how your customer data has evolved over time. In terms of block settings, the block settings itself give you ability to block obviously individual type of events that you want to do and be able to save them. And it starts to take into effect right away as soon as you have that toggle box. And it would give you, and in my case, I've set up like I said, a quarantine. It would start piping that data right away into that particular quarantine event. The last thing I want to show you is that uh, the plans are also kind of that, almost like a document in a way that you can start off with a draft, which you work with your team, then you can promote it into a dev, which is that dev environment that the developer can send for testing the environments, the events on, and then you can make it active on production data to be able to leverage anything that's happening in production, and that would become your production plan. So you could have multiple sorts of plans. You could have plans by particular source. In my case, obviously, I have a web, but I could have an iOS plan, an Android plan. You can have plans by goals. You could have a plan specifically for a particular set of new initiatives, like that search box that I showed you, where you only want to track what's happening within that search box and be able to leverage and quantify the different feature sets that you want to leverage from that feature or to individually see those particular data points. So with that, the demo part of our session is done. I'd like to go back and do a bit of a recap on what we kind of covered today. And if you were able to follow some of those nuances with the plans not loading up, I apologize for that. But it did come up at the end. So if you stuck around, that was awesome. All right, so benefits of using the mParticle Data Quality Suite really boils down to 4 key use cases and challenges that we help teams overcome. One, when you create a data plan through an organized stakeholder effort, you essentially are making everybody around the org that's working on AHA Shop as a project speak a common data language. And data plans and block data help you enforce and make sure that that same language is utilized and that same vocabulary utilized when you talk about data points and events. With the events, you can obviously see how customer data evolves over time. I didn't get a chance to show you the catalog, but catalog is that data dictionary where every single data point that mParticle has seen for that particular web app is available there, whether they were bad events, good events. But data plans help you enforce what is good and what is bad. Making data quality an always-on continuous operation is what block data is all about. When you set up that feature to be turned on, that, hey, I want all my unplanned events to be blocked, that helps you mitigate any issues about populating downstream systems with bad data, and also gives you the ability to fix those issues and make sure that only good data makes it downstream. And then finally, all these features all together are really about a total quality management play. That how can you have a customer data pipelines in your platform that have a set of tools available to you, whether you're a marketer, a product manager, or a developer, to be able to know and react to bad data problems. Because if they are left undone, slowly and surely over time, they're going to start to cause issues in how you make decisions. So with that, we'll kind of go into the Q&A section. I'm going to check real quick to see if there are any questions on LinkedIn. But in the meantime, a couple of things for other learning that you can leverage. that if you go into our mParticle resources website or go to our mParticle's LinkedIn landing page, you can see a few other tutorials which are also around data quality, data planning API and CLI, as an overview of how you can utilize those two features and perform all sorts of CRUD operations. You can also see a live demo of SmartType, which is that open source tool that I spoke about that lets you enforce data models across your multi-platform to make sure that all the platforms, even if they have nuances of how events and naming conventions are enforced, they help you make it so that you only do it once and propagate it wherever it's needed. And finally, you have linting, which is a capability that I didn't show you today. But once you download that plan through that CLI that I showed you through that command, you can now have that embedded in your IDE, and you can use something like ESLint if you were Java working JavaScript, and be able to see highlighted ways of, oh, this particular event product viewed is not product viewed, it's products viewed. So that developer can actually fix those issues in real time without even having that problem that we had when that event was fat fingered. So with that, looks like there is one question that came in, and that question is around how can you make sure that these data plans are enforced across different workspaces. The data plan are currently tied to an individual workspace. So if you have, let's say you are a brand and you have multiple different sub brands and you have workspaces for each one of them, then you would need to create a data plan within that individual workspace. But what you can do though is, since we give you the ability to import and export that data plan, you can take that same plan that you have in a particular workspace and download it and then make it available and import it into the other workspace. And it's a quick and easy step, but allows you to do that. Let's see if you have any other questions. All right, looks like there aren't. Well, thank you very much for your time today, and we'll be happy to, I look forward to communicating more data quality updates to you in the future with additional tooling.